Hi there everybody, I'm Daniel Peeney. I'm here with George Garley, owner of Battleground Grappling Invitational, and Joanne Skiba, a long-time competitor, and we're here today to talk a little bit about Battleground 5. George, talk us through in the run-up to the event. How were you feeling? What were your thoughts as we were moving towards game day?
It's always a rush for us from the production side of things in the lead up to the event, but there's always a excitement because, you know, we've gone through the stages of getting the athletes ready, all contracts have been signed, they've been training very hard, and it's just the final stages where there's that excitement from the athletes, from the fans, you know, but from the production side of things, there's a lot of rush of things that need to get done. But the lead up is always it's always amazing. It's an amazing lead up to it, you know. The closer that we get to the event, the more it becomes a reality, and you know, the more excited we do get for when that day finally comes, where we can just put on the show. Athletes come in, they do their thing, and we just put on a good production overall. So yeah.
So with the athletes, talk us through a little bit about, you know, how you go about selecting the athletes that you want to compete in Battlegrounds, and maybe what we can expect moving forward from the organisation.
So absolutely, we've got a team of matchmakers that we go through. So there's three of us, so we all liaise and discuss which athlete we think should be on and who's fighting who. We do look at, like, you know, the talent, the skill sets, the achievements, you know, that they have. So especially when it comes to the higher end of the card, we're trying to get the best of the best in there. You know, we're trying to get the most talented guys in WA, in Australia, to fight on the big stage. So it is a bit of a process that we go through. You know, from there on, we'll get in touch with the athletes. We do have some athletes that do reach out to us as well. So when they reach out to us, you know, we'll sit, discuss, and then we'll go on from there. So yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
George.
because you've got to be able to match them up with someone that's appropriate to their skill set and also their accolades as well.
Absolutely,
You don't want to have mismatch. So if someone says, I want to be on, it's like, well, you've got to find someone that's going to be appropriate for them too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Joe, first time on the commentary team with myself on Battleground, and hopefully not the last.
That's
How
right.
did you find the experience?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was the second time. Last time you weren't there, so
Of
I mean, it was my second time. But you know, I feel like it always takes a match or two for me to get in the head frame, like the mind frame of being a commentator. And there was like a couple of times where I had to sort of jump off and then jump back in, and I had my little girl in the crowd, so I was going from mum mode to commentator mode. And every time I came back, I was like, hang on, how do I commentate again? So it was like a little bit hard at times, but I always really enjoy it. And like, I love watching jiu-jitsu and analysing it in that sort of like active way. You know, you're watching it, you make suggestions of what might unfold or what you would do, and sometimes it's exactly that, and then other times they do something that's completely surprising. You're like, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that, but it worked out really well. So I like seeing that in the people that are on the stage, especially under the pressure of what's going on, how they act under that pressure and what jiu-jitsu comes out of them then.
Absolutely. And how do you find the difference between, you know, competing on that stage and then being a little bit removed from the action? What kind of feelings though inside you?
I mean, much less nerves and anxiety. Yeah, look, I think either way it's kind of a rush, because the environment and the atmosphere of BG is just like nothing I've ever experienced at a jiu-jitsu comp before. You know, like, you get to big comps, you know, like PAMPAX or, you know, there's those bigger tournaments. And we don't have massive ones in WA, so it's like one of those ones that has that, I guess, that real sporting atmosphere mixed with a show, you know, like a I don't know, Broadway show or something. You know, like you've got the lights and the stage and then the audience and everything, and so the vibe sort of makes it what it is, both as a commentator and as an athlete that's stepping onto the stage. Either way, you've got this anticipatory feeling, these sort of like nerves or energy as well that comes from the room. So it's wicked.
Fabulous. So moving on to the card itself, it was, you know, absolutely jam-packed with enthralling, exciting matches. You know, great representation from both Western Australia and the other states. Amazing matchups between male and female athletes. A real success, a real celebration of jiu-jitsu and grappling in general. George, any particular highlights for you during the card?
I think my highlights usually one that excites me, especially when we create the main card. And I think a lot of people are always excited to see who are on the main card. And my highlight was really the three main we had. You know, we had Teco and Stacy. When when we did that matchup, we really wanted to pay respect to, Stacey being an OG. We wanted to pay respect to one of the OGs of WA Jiu-Jitsu, and then also having Teko here. Teko's been in the game for a long time. He was the national coach for Singapore, for the Singaporean Jiu-Jitsu team. He's trained a lot of like top athletes around the world. He taught out of Evolve MMA before transitioning to Gracie Barra. So he was a OG in his right as well. So we thought about the idea of bringing these two legends together, so to say. I don't want to say legend, so they don't think I'm calling them old. But we wanted to bring these legends together to really have them go out there and display absolutely amazing jiu-jitsu, and they did that. I think like they were probably one of the toughest fights of the night. From like get-go, they were like, I was finding it hard to keep up. I was running out of breath just watching their match. So I was really excited by that match. And then the co-main, we had Alex Honga versus Tito Kale, and the good thing about that match was nobody knew who Alex was in regards to the national scene. I'll probably say most people only really noticed his performance at ADCC trials.
Against Harry Gretsch, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So against Harry Gretsch, that was when it was a bit of a standout. So there was a lot of like, I think most people would have probably thought it was a big mismatch, just because obviously Tito's achieved so much within the country. So that was an exciting match for us because we thought that Alex would present a bit of a threat to Tito, and which is what we saw during the match, and Tito did end up getting the win, but I think Alex proved to the nation that he is to be respected in that essence. So that was really good. And then we have Kaya and Ricky, which was also a really great match. When that match was made, I think Ricky came out and showed us that he also belongs, in the top of Australian Jiu-Jitsu with the rest of the guys there as well. And it was an entertaining fight. It was a really entertaining fight. So I really loved those three matches. It was really awesome. It was really awesome to watch.
Yeah, so much to take from that there, George.
Absolutely.
I mean, going back to Alex, I've never seen a bigger man in my entire life. I've never seen someone so, and not big as in like overweight or stuff. I mean, just a big dude. Like,
I was surprised at seeing the size difference between them, even when they weighed in, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there was going to be such a big size difference. Because you already think of Tito as being quite a big guy as well, and then having someone like Alex just, that next level.
Tito still got his throw though, which
he got
he did. He said he was going to do it, and he did.
It's a scary throw. It's a very scary throw. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that throw for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I guess for me, the big thing with this was that Alex was so dominant on top in terms of his pressure.
Yes.
And dominant on top in terms of his progression.
Yes.
That was crazy to me. But the heart that Tito's shown to get back in that position.
Absolutely.
I thought the jiu-jitsu between both of them was amazing. Like
great,
considering they are usually when you see bigger guys like that, you see much less movement of jiu-jitsu. You see much more slower pace, just going through each sort of passing, top control, that sort of thing. And there was a lot more movement than I expected to see between two guys of that size.
Absolutely.
So I thought it was wicked.
Absolutely. And there was two things for me. The first thing that really stood out for me was one, Alex's calmness under composure. Some of Tito's tactics I just loved from an MMA perspective. I'm a bit about that face covering and a bit about that, when you put on a submission, you put it on to kill. Like I was into that really massively, but also at the same time, Alex was super calm, super composed, didn't rise to it. Maybe I wanted him to rise to because it would have made for a very spicy matchup, but also at the same time, I was just really impressed by his composure.
As someone that's actually doing the fight, that's a really good way to go about those sorts of tactics. Like as spectators, you're like, oh, come on, do something about it. But the best way to get a better outcome out of that is to stay as calm as he did. I think he handled it really well.
Yeah, and Tito pulling the submission out of the bag.
Absolutely. With 3 seconds to go, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I think, what a fight. 3 seconds to go. And the scary thing was thank goodness I'm not in that weight division. I don't have to ever face those guys.
Do you think without that submission at the end, had it not gone to the submission in that last few minutes, do you think Alex might have gotten that
In
decision?
my head, if I'm honest, I was probably leaning more towards Alex winning, just because in the first half of
He had
the
that real top control for a
that
long
top pressure
time.
there,
Yeah.
and so I had him winning from there. But man, that's the name of the game. That's the
Yeah.
nature of the beast.
Anyone
you
can
know?
snatch it in those minutes. So that's
Yeah.
the thing is not to leave it to the decision, because you don't want to have it in the judge's hands. You want to show that
Absolutely.
you can finish it.
And judges are subjective. Judges' opinions are subjective. I mean, I had Alex ahead personally,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You know, I had Gabby Katiana, for example, ahead
Yeah.
quite considerably.
Yeah.
In her
I
fight.
wanted to ask you guys about that one, because that was probably the most controversial
I
one.
was gonna
Absolutely,
come to that,
yes.
yeah. I was going to come to that one. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Joe. And like for me, but again, that comes down to, I mean, not to take anything away from her opponent, not to take anything away from Shelby. It comes down to your perception of what, you know, wins a jiu-jitsu match. Is it
Yeah.
submission attempts or is it control?
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
as a younger athlete, I was always more of the opinion, you
Yeah.
know, submission attempts are cool and
Yeah.
getting those submissions are cool.
Yeah.
But as I've got older and maybe a bit tireder, you know, for me, control becomes something which is really,
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
important. So I'd be interested first, probably Joe, to come to you to get your opinion, your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think, and I've talked to a couple of people about it, because it was probably the most like controversial one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it really depends as well what the judges were briefed before like with BG, when you brief them on what they're looking for. I think like the hierarchy is submission attempts, because you want that fight, you want people to be going for stuff. So I think is that right? It's a submission.
So we're looking for legitimate submission attempts and
Aggression,
dominant
yeah.
control.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so sometimes I think where it lied the issue where we had Shelby, she had more submission attempt from the get-go. She had that strong guillotine in.
Yeah.
And then a few times when she went upside down, I believe she was trying to attack the leg as
Yeah.
well.
Now that's my
Yeah.
my issue with this one
Yeah.
is, I guess, that when you look at people going for leg attacks, because people get very excited by leg attacks.
Yeah.
When you go into these in sort of inverted leg attack positions, people kind of think them as submission attempts, but it's just a new position.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
it's an exciting position, but it's not a submission attempt. And I think what may have happened in the judges' eyes, she had that major
Yeah.
submission attempt with the guillotine. It was on for a long time, and Gabby
Yeah.
was in there for a long time. And then you have these other sort of turning positions into going for the legs, but I don't necessarily think that they were, you could count them as a submission attempt. You know, there was no grip on a heel or on an ankle, and I think that's where maybe the judges, people get very excited over it and go,
Yeah.
oh, that's a submission attempt,
Yeah.
but it's actually more just a change in position that looks exciting. So I think, you know, Gabby really dominated positionally and had a lot of time on top, and did more control. And then Shelby obviously had that really big submission attempt at the start, and a couple of other things that looked quite exciting. So I think that's where the controversy comes in.
It's great learning for Gabby. Because I spoke to her after the match and she was pretty disappointed, but she's also professional in that she was respectful of the result. But what she said to me afterwards was that when we talked a little bit about it, she said to me that the reason why she was pretty okay with that is that she didn't feel the guillotine was on at all.
Yeah.
What I think the good learning is that if you're in a submission, and even if it isn't deep, you know, not everyone can tell that. Not everyone can see that.
Yeah.
So the issue for Gabby is, well, if it wasn't deep, why were you not getting out of it quicker? Why didn't you get out of it quicker and then make it not look like it was there? Because you're only in that on that ground, on that battleground for 6, 7, 8 minutes, depending on what level you're at.
Yeah.
So you haven't got a huge amount of time to show. So if she could have got out of it or pushed the pace to get out of it within a minute, and she was in there for 2 minutes, is that minute extra time that she spent chilling there, was that what was there? But no doubt, I've trained with Gabby for a long time. She's getting better and better and better. And I think it's really good learning for her. She come back to it in the future.
I think I would have liked to see her. You know, if I was one of the judges, I would have liked to see, because Gabby did have probably the most dominant position out of the two of them. I would have liked to see her try and attempt
an attack.
a submission. Or
I
an
think
attack,
one
you
submission
know?
attempt would have swayed that match
Yeah,
away.
yeah. Because I think like from a judge's perspective, if you're in a dominant position but you're not doing anything with that position, and said person's on the bottom trying to get out, sometimes it might not be in your favor because you're just holding that position, so to say.
Absolutely.
So it could go either way. That match reminds me slightly of when Kyle fought
Lucky.
when
Conway,
Kyle fought Conway. You know, I think Kyle had the Kimura attempt from there, and
Yeah.
then Conor had the control, but not much was done from that control, so to say. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
a bit of similarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so exciting. You know, it makes it exciting because everyone's perspective is different and those
Absolutely,
perspectives
yeah.
are valued.
Yeah.
And it goes to show, I think, for me, that, you know, when you come into Battleground, courageousness is
Yes.
rewarded,
Absolutely.
fighting with heart,
Yeah,
and
tenacity.
tenacity,
Yeah.
courageousness,
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
taking a bit
Yeah.
of a risk sometimes.
Yes.
Even if you know you've only got a couple of, you know, you're safe. If you're like, nah, you know, I get guillotined all the time, this isn't
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But the idea being is you're only on that stage for 8, 10, 12 minutes. You've got to
Absolutely.
take, you've got to take that opportunity.
Interesting thing about both of them is guillotines are a big part of both of their submission games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
both getting guillotined and doing the guillotine, you
Yeah.
expect
Yeah.
that Shelby will be able to finish it.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
like one of her major submissions, and then
Yeah.
same with Gabby, like knowing that that's one of her major submissions, being able to defend it, maybe she was actually feeling
Yeah.
pretty comfortable there.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, congrats to Shelby, because, you know, that's a
Absolutely, yeah.
tightly contested game. It's a great win, and obviously sets a
Yeah, both
foundation
girls
for
did
further.
phenomenal.
It's great learning
Look
for
to have them
future.
on again for sure.
So I think for me, the other fight that really stood out for me was Kai Rudolph's fight, you know, against Bashan. You know, for me, the level of jiu-jitsu that was on display,
It was amazing. It was beautiful.
technical display was unbelievable. I've only seen bits of both fighters in the past, obviously being overstate and stuff like that. But, you know, particularly Rudolph, Kai was his ability to retain guard and recover guard, and
Yeah.
his ability to then launch attacks from those positions, incredible.
Phenomenal. Kai is an amazing fighter, you know, and sometimes I think he doesn't get the respect that he deserves in Australia, so to say, sometimes. But, you know, the kid has been training around the world. He's been fighting literally some of the best guys in the world, trains with the best, one of the best teams in the world. So like just seeing him being able to display that in front of a home crowd, you know, for those that don't know, Kai actually started jiu-jitsu here in Perth when he was a young kid. So for seeing him display that level of jiu-jitsu and the technicality that we all witnessed it was amazing. It was amazing to see, you know, and that's not even a discredit to Ricky, because Ricky put it on as well, you know. Ricky was in that fight from the beginning to the end, and I feel like towards the end Ricky had like a second lung ready to go, you know. So when they nearly went off the mat and Ricky got up and he started clapping, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be wild. So it was an amazing fight. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that fight.
Yeah.
And Ricky was incredibly modest during his interview, Joe. But what did you make of his jiu-jitsu? Because I was incredibly
I mean,
impressed.
with those kinds of matches, when it goes for such a long time, you see such a mix of jiu-jitsu in different areas, and both guys were phenomenal in different areas. You know, they showed such a well-rounded jiu-jitsu approach, and Ricky especially, you know, like, showed that he was able to stand, he was able to, you know, deal with submission intents, and then throw it back and do the leg stuff and do the passing stuff, you know, all of that. So he showed a really well-rounded understanding of jiu-jitsu, especially against Kai, who has also a really well-rounded jiu-jitsu. Be able to, I was saying this to someone the other day as well, when you have people, they usually have an area where they're ace at, and it's usually bottom or usually top, and in the opposite they kind of just like deal with it and get back to their A game. But with those two guys, you kind of go, where is their A game? It's everywhere, right? And both of them showed that, so I thought it was amazing.
Absolutely, Joe. What most impressed me about both of them was just that ability to turn, you know, be on the defensive, but then turn that back into offense. You know, for me, you know, even as a new black belt in the space, if I'm on the defensive, you know, if I improve my position slightly, you know, I'm not under immediate threat anymore. I'm happy with that. But for those guys, the level, the ability to go, okay, I'm going to defend this back, take a temp, but then, by the way, you're going to end up in bottom half, and I'm going to start launching attacks. That was amazing.
What makes someone a really good grappler, especially at those high levels, is to use offense as defense. In a smart way, in that you're not putting yourself in extra danger, but you're making the person backtrack from their main goal. They're going, I'm going for this submission or this, you know, pass, whatever it is, and using an offensive defense to make them have to backtrack and like sidetrack them from what their goal is. And
I think that's what Kai was really good at. You know, like, you know, whenever he had Ricky in a threat and Ricky got out, there was no threat for Kai. You know what I mean? He was back onto retaining and attacking again. Which is phenomenal to see. If I'm attacking someone and they get out, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to defend for the next 3 minutes or so because I'm done. You know. And shout out to Ricky as well. He's got he's got grit.
Mm.
You know, in the couple of final minutes when Kai had him in that rear naked choke, and I thought it was done.
Yeah.
I thought it was done, and
Yeah.
when he got out, the crowd just went.
Yeah.
You know? It was
And then to
amazing.
continue on after that, you know, to have the
Yeah.
stamina to continue
Oh.
on after you've been absolutely gassed in a position where
Yeah.
you're under threat for, you know, a fair whack of time. It's,
Yeah.
you know, to come back from that and still fight it out all the way
Yeah.
to the end shows grit
Absolutely.
and stamina. So.
Yeah.
Before we move on to what's next, one of the when we talk about grit and stamina, there was one other guy, 18-year-old on the card, fighting up against a very experienced opponent, and I believe he trained out of Kaizen Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh,
was it?
Kaizen Lab.
Yeah, and it was
young Andrew.
Young Andrew.
Yeah.
The grit and hard that he showed.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe it was Andrew. I believe it was the lad with the ginger hair. His name escapes me. I do apologise.
Oh, he was fighting out of Vanguard Jiu-Jitsu.
Vanguard. He's only 18.
Shane.
Shane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might need to cut this bit out, but yeah.
Sorry,
But
Sean. Yeah.
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 Shane, was up
Against Caleb.
Caleb.
Yeah,
Caleb,
that was
yeah.
amazing. The amount that he escaped
Yeah.
Oh,
and
my
just
goodness,
continued to fight out of those positions.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, he's
My
coming,
body
he's almost
broke
done,
in
he's almost done.
30 different ways.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to give a shout out to that one because Caleb's performance was very accomplished.
Absolutely,
And it was
yeah.
a great performance of
Mm-hmm.
continuously aggressive at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But the heart, you can't replace heart, you can't quit heart. I wanted to give that
Absolutely,
lad a shout out because if you are watching, you do see this, don't be discouraged. At the end of the day, you should never be scared of losses, or you should never be, beaten down by it. It's an experience that you learn from, you become stronger from, and we look forward to hopefully seeing him.
And he's only
on the
18.
card. And
He's only
18.
18, which is the good thing about the battleground stages. it's such a different environment. It brings the dog out of everyone. It does bring
Yeah.
that heart out of everyone. You
Yeah.
know, and Shane did a good job. He did a really good job.
Absolutely.
When they were weighing in, I shook his hand, and then I shook Caleb's hand. For a moment, I was like, man. This might be a mismatch, Like Caleb is a grown man. Like he shook my hand, I felt like I was 18 there, And when I shook Shane's hands, I was like, oh, this is a good handshake. And I shook Caleb's hand, I was like, my goodness, oh my lord, don't put me up against this guy,
Yeah.
So
It's funny with something like that in the gi as well. You don't expect so much escape slippage as the way that he did, because of the grips. You usually expect that someone can actually hold someone in place and finish it, but the way that he just managed to keep finding angles for himself and get out multiple times was absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Good on you, mate.
Yeah,
Well done.
absolutely. And another impressive win for Caleb. I'm looking forward to seeing Caleb come up against someone probably his own size.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I
And
would
hope
love
that
to.
he'll be back.
We've got a. I won't say it now, but I think we've got a great matchup for Caleb. I think the tall boys. Got to get them tall boys together. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
someone else that was on the card.
We've
Maybe
got
that
maybe
was
someone else
also
that was on the card that was a
quite
pretty tall.
Yeah.
So maybe we might put you boys together and see a great little dance.
Yeah, so you talk a little bit about what maybe comes next, George, and we're talking about possibilities. What possibilities do you think are out there for Battleground 6?
Man, the good thing is, in the grand scheme of things, we're still new. Obviously we've rocketed up. We rocketed up pretty quick. Thanks to the quality of production that we produce. The quality of talents that we do have on the shows as well. What's coming next is, our aim is always to elevate Australian Jiu-Jitsu, to give these athletes the biggest platform we possibly can. And outside of the biggest platform, we want to treat these athletes like stars. We want them to feel that they're looked after, and that we want them on the show, not just because we're trying to grab a quick cash grab. We really care about the athletes, and we're really trying to lift them up to the highest standards we can. And I hope we're doing that job. I hope they see they see what we're doing in that essence. What's next for Battleground? We're just gonna get bigger. It's gonna get bigger. It's gonna get better. Every show we have, we get great feedbacks from everyone saying, "Man, this is amazing," and our job is just to make it bigger and better and bigger and better until we get to the best stage we can.
And I think it's really interesting. There was a recent article published about professional athletes, not being paid, not being looked after by these, the current climate out there in that space. Without naming names or going into individuals, we wouldn't do that here. But I guess for me, that's something that, Joe, I'm sure you can speak from your experience around how athletes are treated in Battleground, and how how it reflects in the values of what George was just talking about there.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think something like this level of production as well, and the way that it both shows on the screen in the stream when you watch it live, and then even the photo production after, right? it gives people a really good platform and exposure to then be noticed as they go higher and higher, because obviously people who love jiu-jitsu and want to make it in jiu-jitsu want to climb it higher and higher internationally, but you got to start at the national level or the state level, and these sorts of productions help get people recognized, especially if they do well and they get really good pictures and clips and people see them on the stream, gets them noticed and then gives them further opportunities. And I think that's amazing. And then the thing is as well, on top of that, you still need to be able to earn something from all the training that you do, because most people are working a job or they sacrifice working a job to train for something like this, and so there needs to be some level of recognition and compensation for that, especially as you get up on the card. You're versing other people who probably train either full-time or close to it, and so you need to give up your time to be able to train appropriately for those sorts of things. And I unfortunately haven't had the opportunity to train as hard as I would like for that sort of thing, but that's where, if you know that someone's going to look after you, like a promotion's going to look after you, you can make those sacrifices to get that enough training in, so you put on a good show and then you get recognised and you can make it and climb it higher.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we talk about that there, we talk about, being someone where they can get recognised on the local scene. But George, I guess the plan is to become one of those, one of those competitions or one of those institutions where people come to for premium quality, the top level of jiu-jitsu. I'm sure that would be the goal. I mean, I think a Grapple Fest, which is run in my hometown of Liverpool, great production which attracts world-class athletes. Why isn't there any reason that Battleground can't become that place?
I think like, we look at all these other promotions like, Grapple Fest, Polaris, Who's Number One, Subversive, Subversion, Spore, Super 8. There's the M16 as well. We look at all these promotions and, we try to see where we can fit in and where we can play our part, And one big thing that our production team were quite stubborn on is just in terms of quality from beginning to end, it has to be perfect and it has to be as precise as possible, Many who on the night of Battleground, you probably see Manny running around like a headless chook trying to sort everything out. He's behind the cameras right now. We've made it our goal that everybody, no matter where you are in the world, if you're fighting on Battleground, we're going to get you a professional photo shoot. And we're going to cover that cost for you, By doing that, we're only elevating the quality of your profile, You see a lot of promotions where they'll stand someone against the wall at the gym and someone will take a photo on their iPhone and then they'll send it through. In our eyes, not many people care much about looking at your poster if you're fighting or, looking at your fight card, but where there is the professional standards like what the UFC does and, what Bellator does, it's eye-grabbing and people want to see that, You could have your super local talent that not many people know. If he's got a professional picture done and it's put up on social media, people are all of a sudden captured by that. They're like, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? And therefore, it creates publicity for the athletes themselves. Obviously, it creates publicity for us as well. But that's our part in really trying to elevate everyone, So saying that, if you're on our show, we will pay for your photo to get taken. It doesn't matter how much it costs. We're going to cover that for you, So we give you that professional platform that you're on, And then obviously the production when they're fighting and everything, it's world class, So
And if you're out there as a young athlete thinking about these things, if you think about it as a perspective of a business, your brand and the way that brand is presented is the most important thing in terms of future opportunity. And I think that's really, really a cornerstone. And as you said, also it's been mentioned, the care of your athletes and making sure they're not without is also really important.
Absolutely,
So really excited to see what happens next. George, in summary, as we wrap up Battleground 5, is there a message that you want to give out there for the viewers at home and for athletes out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say, from the bottom of our hearts, when we run this event, it comes from a place of wanting to uplift jiu-jitsu in Australia, and sometimes I feel like we're a small nation in the grand scheme of things, and when we all come together and work together, these things happen. Like a great example of what you said of Grapple Fest, they had humble beginnings and now they've got world talents that are going to the UK. You know, and it's through those humble beginnings of people getting together. You know, you look at Polaris, you look at all these other shows, and I think if they can do that, we also have the capability to do that here in Australia. You know, across all the promotions that there are. You know, so I think when we do come together, you know, and we work together and we try to elevate jiu-jitsu in Australia and we try to promote each other, you know, I think in no time we'll have you know, a lot of world-class guys wanting to come to Australia to compete on our shows.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that's the ultimate goal for us.
And why wouldn't you want to come to beautiful sunny Perth to compete?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so from myself, from Joe and from George, thank you very much, and we will see you at Battleground 6. See you all on the Battleground.